Look at the map. Just 21 miles of water, that is all that separates one of the world's most important oil routes from total disruption. If you are watching this, stay until the end because what is happening in this narrow corridor could reshape global energy in real time. And before we go further, if you want daily updates on breaking geopolitical conflicts explained clearly, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss what comes next. That distance sounds small, almost harmless, until you realize nearly a fifth of the world's oil supply moves through it every single day. According to multiple defense and maritime assessments, this is one of the most sensitive maritime choke points on the planet. And right now, intelligence reports and regional monitoring suggest rising military activity beneath its waters that most commercial ships cannot see. Before we break that down, subscribe now if you want real-time breakdowns like this every day instead of waiting for slow news cycles. At first glance, it looks like just another busy shipping lane, but beneath the surface, conditions change completely. The depth is shallow, the space is tight, and navigation is predictable. That combination is exactly what makes it so strategically vulnerable. Analysts have long warned that narrow waterways like this become pressure points during conflict escalation. And if you think this is just theoretical, stay with this because the next detail changes everything. Also, subscribe now if you want these situations explained before they escalate further. Recent open-source intelligence and defense briefings suggest that mine warfare capabilities in the region have been expanded significantly over the past years. Naval mines are not new weapons, but modern versions are far more advanced than most people realize. Some are designed to rest on the seabed, others can remain suspended in the water column, waiting for specific acoustic or magnetic signatures before activating. And here is where things start to get more complicated than most headlines suggest. Because once deployed, these systems do not behave like conventional weapons. They do not move, they do not announce themselves, and they do not require constant control. They wait. And that waiting creates a different kind of tension, one that does not show up on radar screens or satellite images in obvious ways. And if you are finding this breakdown valuable so far, subscribe now because we are just getting into the part most reports only hint at. The concern among maritime security analysts is not just about the presence of mines, but about uncertainty. In a narrow shipping lane, even a limited number of undetected devices can force commercial traffic to slow down or reroute entirely. That alone creates economic pressure without a single ship being hit. Insurance companies begin to reassess risk, shipping costs rise, and supply chains start adjusting before any physical incident occurs. And what happens next is where the situation becomes even more sensitive, because once uncertainty enters a major trade route, perception becomes as powerful as reality. A single credible threat can change shipping behavior faster than any physical blockade. That is why some tankers have reportedly already begun adjusting routes or delaying entry, depending on risk assessments. But there is another layer here that rarely gets discussed in mainstream coverage. Naval mine clearance is one of the most complex operations in modern warfare. It is slow, methodical, and requires highly specialized equipment. Autonomous underwater drones, sonar mapping systems, and remote-controlled disposal units are often used because sending human divers into suspected mine zones carries extreme risk. Each detected object must be identified, confirmed, and neutralized one at a time. And that means even a small area can take days or weeks to fully clear. Now consider what that means in a narrow, high-traffic corridor. The difference between deployment speed and clearance speed creates a structural imbalance. Mines can be placed faster than they can be safely removed. That imbalance is what makes maritime security experts cautious when assessing escalation scenarios like this one. And here is the part that rarely gets enough attention. Even without direct confrontation, the economic effects can spread globally. Oil prices react quickly to perceived supply risks. Shipping insurance premiums adjust in real time. Industrial supply chains that depend on stable fuel transport begin recalculating costs within hours. And that ripple effect can reach far beyond the region itself. Military planners understand this dynamic well. That is why mine warfare has remained one of the most strategically significant tools in confined waterways for decades. It does not rely on visible destruction to create impact. It relies on uncertainty, delay, and risk calculation. But there is another side to this equation. Modern mine countermeasure technology has also advanced significantly. Autonomous underwater vehicles can now map seabeds with high precision. Remote systems can identify anomalies that would have gone unnoticed in earlier decades. And coordinated multinational operations can clear shipping lanes more efficiently than before. However, even with advanced systems, the process remains slow compared to how quickly disruption can occur. What makes this situation especially sensitive is the combination of geography, economics, and military capability all converging in one place. A narrow waterway carrying global energy supplies is already a high-stakes environment. Add potential underwater threats, and you introduce a level of uncertainty that affects decisions made thousands of miles away. And while governments and naval forces continue monitoring the situation closely, the real impact is already visible in global markets reacting to risk, not just events. That distinction is important because in modern geopolitical conflicts, perception often moves faster than physical outcomes. Before we continue, if you are following this situation and want clear, no-nonsense updates as it develops, subscribe now so you stay ahead of the next escalation point. There is also a strategic dimension that analysts are watching carefully. Any sustained disruption in this corridor does not only affect one region, it affects global energy distribution patterns, trade flow reliability, and even long-term strategic planning for naval deployments. That is why multiple international partners are often drawn into mine clearing or maritime security operations when situations like this emerge, because no single navy is designed to handle prolonged mine warfare alone in a high-density commercial zone. It requires coordination, specialized equipment, and continuous monitoring. And even then, the situation remains fluid as long as the underlying tension exists. What happens next depends on multiple factors: operational decisions, diplomatic pressure, and the balance between deterrence and escalation. But one thing is already clear. Even without visible conflict on the surface, the pressure beneath the water is shaping decisions above it. And that is why this narrow stretch of sea is now at the center of global attention again. Not because of what has already happened, but because of what could happen if the situation continues to evolve. Before the final takeaway, one more important point needs to be made. Situations like this rarely resolve quickly. They evolve in phases, and each phase changes how risk is calculated by governments, insurers, and shipping operators worldwide. That means the next update could matter just as much as the first. If you want to stay informed as this develops day by day, make sure you are subscribed because we are tracking this in real time, breaking it down clearly without noise or confusion. And if you found this breakdown valuable, subscribing helps you stay ahead of the next major update as soon as it happens.